everybody. My name is StCyr. I am online sometimes as the Modern Day Settler. If you follow me on Instagram today, when I turn my head, can you hear? Can you hear? Okay, cool. Today we are going to talk all about processing sheared wool. So I'm going to take you a very quick, abridged version of going from a raw fleece to a finished skein of yarn. One thing I just really want to express is that on a home level, it does not need to be some massive, big production that you have to invest a ton of money into. A lot of things you can do with, there are some things that will make life easier and that sure to do a good job, like you should buy. But up until this year, I've carded wool with just these hand carders off of eBay that I got, that are glued and screwed together because I got them so cheaply. So it's just a great process to learn, especially if you just love the whole process and the aspect of working with wool and truly making, what it is that you want. And some sheep are just harder in general to find a mill. I'm kind of the poster child for that. I have Icelandics. Actually, next slide, please. So, wait, was that me up there? Wow. Wow. I have Icelandics, and they're notoriously difficult to find mills for because just their staple lengths are so long that most equipment can't handle it. So just it's a great thing to learn, to do, and to really fully appreciate the whole process. So there's really I just want to make sure you can hear me when I do this. Okay, because I can't. So there are really 5 basic steps to the process. There's the shearing, which is your wool harvest. There's the skirting, which is picking out everything that is undesirable and that you do not want to end up in your final product. There's the scouring, which is the washing of the wool, getting all the nasty out. Then there's your actual fiber preparation. So are you going to card? Are you going to card with a drum carder? Are you going to card with hand carders? Are you going to comb with like those big Viking combs? And then there is the actual spinning, of course. And this is assuming that you're a spinner. Maybe you're a felter and you get to the carding and you get your nice big bat and then that's it. Then you go on to your felting project. So that's obviously, if you're a knitter or a weaver or a crocheter, like that would be the final step in the process. Another thing is each of these steps really, they do build upon the previous one. So it's important to do the best of your ability in each step because you can't save it later necessarily. Like if you don't do the best job skirting the fleece, in scouring, all that hay that you're like, meh, like I'll worry about it later, that doesn't just magically disappear in the washing process. To an extent, which I'll show you, you can get some stuff out in carding. But it builds upon the steps that came before it. And the better job you do at each step, the easier the subsequent steps are gonna be, and then the better quality your finished product. It's very easy to wanna cheat. I promise you, I've cut corners and I'm like, oh, now this is way harder than it needed to be. First step is the shearing, and thankfully we do have a wonderful shearer. We have Luke, he's over there, over that away, in the barnyard area. He's shearing some sheep. So because I have so much to talk about and very little time to do it, I'm really not gonna talk about that step because there's someone doing live demoing over there. Basically though, you're harvesting the wool, that's your crop, right? So depending on your breed that you raise, this may be done once a year, this may be done twice a year. I raise Icelandics and they are sheared twice a year. So, I'm sorry, next slide and then the next slide. Okay, perfect. So the skirting is, like I said, that is picking out all the undesirables. So when the sheep is actually being sheared, depending on the particular shearer, he may do some pre-skirting for you. Mine does. The belly wool is not really woolly. It's more hairy and kind of, I don't like the feel that it gives to yarn. Is StCyr. I am online sometimes as the modern day settler, if you follow this fleece. And then what I like to do, that's my skirting table at home. It's just set up on sawhorses. All it is plastic coated chicken wire over a wooden frame made out of scrap wood, tucked under and stapled so that those little tines don't slowly make their way up and your wool gets snagged, and that's really a pain in the butt. And so I just throw it on my table, cut side down. And what I like to do at first is I just go around and shake it like this, and that helps. See, these are called second cuts. So this is where the shear went over the same spot twice and literally cut it twice, second cuts. If maybe the shearing job is not the greatest, there might be third, fourth, fifth, sixth hacked to pieces cuts, and then you can't really do anything with it spinning wise. So doing that though helps kind of get those second cuts out on their own. They fall through those holes that are in the wire. This is just a good opportunity, assuming this is your own flock, great opportunity to assess the wool and the fleece quality, because wool is all protein. It's like our hair, our nails. We're sick. We're not the great, don't have the best minerals. Maybe, hopefully we don't have parasites, but maybe you do. But if there's an issue and the animal is sick or has some kind of a burden, that's where it's going to reflect. You're going to have brittle wool. You're going to have breaking wool. It might just not have as good of a luster. You'd be like, wow, these staple lengths, it should be longer than it is. Things like that. So a good time to assess the wool quality. But what I like to do is I will just first throw it out on the table. It's really awesome when it does come off like a blanket, and it's like, this is the animal. I could see where the head was. I could see where the tail, where the legs were. And I work my way around and always just skirt out the outside because, we don't want these felted manure tags in our wool. So go around, skirt all that outside. I have two skirted piles. I have this is gross, and it's not suited for anything other than mulch in the garden, which is a great use of skirted out wool, by the way. My dye garden, every plant is mulched with wool. And then my other the belly wool, stuff that I don't really want in the yarn because I don't like how it feels, that could be great for felting. So go around, get the outside, you're picking all that manure out, looking for felted tips, felted pieces. Vegetable matter is the big thing. That's what a lot of people, it's like the bane of the existence, is picking out the hay and sticks and seeds and things like that. The better hay setup you have, the easier this is going to make your life. I have learned over the years, I've fine-tuned my hay feeding for winter so that I'm not getting this it looks like someone dropped a hay bale on their back, because it's miserable. I promise you it's miserable. So you want to pick all that out, looking for any, like I said, felted pieces. There's all kinds of things that would really disqualify a fleece from, being ideal for spinning. There are bacteria, things like canary sting that can happen. There's signs of mites, and it's you don't want to work with that fleece probably in this way. But it could be used maybe for felting or for mulching or something like that. So not every fleece is going to be a spinning quality fleece. This is not a spinning quality fleece. I personally would not use this for spinning, but you can certainly use it for other projects. So once you get that, next slide, please. See, look at me remembering. So once you get the good wool, you have all the good quality wool, you have all your hay picked out, all your everything like that. Then comes the scouring. Now, scouring is technically it's an optional step. There are a lot of people that like to do what's called spinning in the grease, where they have this fleece, they would take, let me find a good bit. Okay, we're gonna pretend this is a good bit. How about that? It's felted at the ends is the thing. So you can see it's this is, sometimes you can flick, it's not fully felted, it's just slightly married together, and you can take, I have it in my box. It looks like a little dog comb. It's called a flick carder, and you can actually flick that out and it'll come apart if it's not fully felted. So there are people that will like take this and they'll spin from the lock, usually is I think what a lot of people that spin in the grease do. Sometimes they will card with it, but it can be really tough on the equipment because, I mean, it's not just lanolin and other things in there, like there's dirt. But if you're going to dye, if you're wanting to dye your yarn to use it for, whatever your project is, you have to scour, because with that dirt, that grease, that's going to block, the mordanting from adhering to the wool, and then your dye will not adhere to it as well. So you'll end up with super splotchy, not a good dye job. So if you're going to be dyeing, you have to. And also, I just do not like the feeling. It feels gross. I don't like the feeling of a fully greasy fleece any more than I like one that's been boiled to death and has no life to it. I find myself right in the sweet spot. Like I like it somewhere in between. So there are a couple ways to do this. So these are some of my cauldrons that I have at home. This is my dye station, but it is nice for when I'm doing a lot of scouring, because I can just literally transfer to the different cauldrons because all the water is already preheated and it's staged, and I just work my way through. But of course, you don't need to have that set up. I do have a video on the next slide that I will show when I get there, but of another way that I do it. So you can use Blue Dawn. If you, Blue Dawn Original, like who doesn't have that at their house, or just run to the grocery store. That's what I've actually always used up until this year. And then I finally made the switch to the Unicorn Power Scour, which is a extremely specific detergent that's used for this purpose. And I was hearing that it's like the best thing since sliced bread, and how you save all this water, and it doesn't take 7 million rinses, which that's always been my gripe with Blue Dawn. Like, if you ever do your dishes with it, it's like, is this sudding ever going to stop? And that's how I always felt. Like, I felt like I could never get it out of the wool. So I made the switch, and I'll be honest, I think it is worth all the hype. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's not like it's ridiculous, and you use so much less of it, which is, I mean, you're saving on water and all those rinses. So if anyone's off grid or lives in a drought prone area, like, water is important. You need to be, water wise and conscious. So that would be a really great option for you. But you can totally use Blue Dawn. So when you scour, depending on the breed of sheep that you keep, or if you bought the fleece, you can, there is a wide range of loss. Again, I raise Icelandics, and they have they're considered a primitive or unimproved breed. And so they have a pretty low lanolin percentage, but there are some commercial breeds that we're talking like upwards of 50%. So if you have 10 pounds of wool, 5 pounds of that is lanolin. And so you need to, anticipate some loss. And of course, there's dirt and stuff in there that's getting washed too. But really all scouring is the transferring from a hot water detergent bath to a hot water detergent bath as many times as needed, which is really going to depend on how dirty your fleece is. So if it's like filthy, you might need to do like 3 to 4 detergent baths. I will say that even an animal that is out on pasture, say like from spring shearing to fall shearing, or whatever that window is in between your wool harvest, it's going to be a lot cleaner, but there's still dirt. It never ceases to amaze me when I will look at like my fleece that comes off some of my sheep. I'm like, wow. Maybe I can spin this in the grease. Maybe it's not so bad. And then I'll do that first scour bath, and that water, I'm like, where was all that hiding? Like, it's murky, and it's really hard to believe. So what I usually do is I start with my one hot water bath. I use those laundry detergent or laundry bags, where actually we do the next slide. Okay, so there's the Unicorn. So this is a copper boiler that's just sitting over a propane tank, and I'm going to talk about water temperature here in a minute. But you add your detergent to your water. Now you can see that I'm not getting it sudsy. That's a big thing. I'm going to talk about felting dangers, but you always want your water slippery, not sudsy. So then I have that mesh laundry bag that I add my wool in to the water. That propane burner is not on anymore. I got the water up to the temperature that I wanted, turn it off, put the lid on, let it sit 15, 20 minutes. If your water's maintaining a good temperature, you can go a little bit longer if you want. I'm going to talk about this, but it is important to keep an eye on it. So then you pull that detergent bag out. That's my skirting table that you can see. I use it as a way to just let the water drain. Dump the dirty water, rinse the copper boiler out, add some more, hot water. I have one of those rapid propane ones, so it gets it up to temperature in no time flat. And then I was like, okay, well, that water was not so gross. It wasn't the worst, that I've ever had. So I added half the amount of Unicorn Power Scour. If it was really gross, I would do the full amount all over again. So it's really dependent on how dirty the fleece is. So that's why, I can't say, oh, it's always going to be 4 or it's always going to be this amount. It really just depends. So then once your water is, starting to run clear and it's like, okay, it is not murky and dirty anymore, then you're repeating that same process only with just hot water. No detergent, no Unicorn, no Dawn. And you just do that until the water does run clear. And then that's when you want to, again, just pull the fleece out in your laundry bag. Now, from there, they have these little, I see people buy them on Amazon. They're like these little laundry spinners. It's like this little thing that I'm just not into the single purpose thing that I'm going to use for one thing, twice a year. And it's a little centrifugal laundry spinner. So you could do that. Or what I do is I grab that bag by the corner and it's like a lasso, and I'm out there and I'm just whipping that thing around, probably tearing my rotator cuff in the process, just to really whip that water out. That is 100% not a necessary step. I've scoured in the winter in that copper boiler over my wood cook stove. I'm not exactly going out when it's below freezing and starting to whip that, that bag around. I just let it drip dry the best possible, and then it just takes longer to dry is the only thing. So you're just trying to kind of get that water out of there if possible. So then you just pull all of that scoured wool out of the bag. Again, your skirting table is definitely a multi-purpose thing. Laying it out there on the table and let it air dry. Go over every once in a while, give it a toss so that what was on the bottom is now on the top. Let the wind blow on it. Try not to monkey with it too much when you take it out of the bag and it's gonna be still steamy and warm. I usually will, after I do my lasso, I kind of open that zipper up and I just dump it all out in one big clump. On my skirting table, and you will see steam, coming up off of it. I let it sit. I let it get to, just cool off. Just walk away. Go do something. Come back to it, and then that's when I start to spread it out and spread it out across the table, and that's when I start to really pick it apart and open it up so that the wind and the air and the sun will dry it. The water temperature, this is definitely something that you are going to want to find what you like and what works for you, for your sheep, for your preference in spinning. Like I said, there are people that love spinning in the grease, and I am not one of those people, but I also have accidentally scoured my water way too hot. I have a range here that 120 to 160. That's a pretty big range. The thing is lanolin does require a certain temperature in order to be able to be removed from the wool. And that is one of the benefits of the Unicorn, is that it will scour and do that at a lower temperature. And if the water, regardless of what you use, but if the water cools off, if you oops, you forget, and you come back and it's dipped down, that lanolin will actually like re-solidify and adhere back onto the wool, and then it's like even harder to get off the second time. So the temperature is important. My personal preference is, just so you know what I like to do, the unicorn. I use the unicorn now. I like my water to be 130 degrees when my wool hits the water. And again, Icelandics are a lower lanolin percentage, so there's just less to get out to begin with. Also, my fleeces are pretty clean. Like, yeah, they live outside, but I'm out there like picking them, and it's like, oh, if I see something, I pick it off. And I'm a pretty aggressive skirter too. You will become, the more you do it, like at the beginning, you're like, I want every piece to be usable, and I want to spin every piece. And then once you start doing it, you're like, oh no, that didn't do me any favors. You're like, no, garden mulch, or whatever it may be. So with the water, for me, I kind of describe it as the way that I like to do it is like a vat pasteurization versus like an ultra high temperature pasteurization. I like to do more like a lower temperature, even if it means I have to do another, maybe 2 extra scour baths. Because again, like I said, I've accidentally overdone the temperature before, and it will just, it's like the most lifeless, like, it just doesn't want to do anything. It just like kind of like lays in your hand like a dead thing. It feels like it just, I don't know. It doesn't give it a good feel. I feel like it doesn't want to become yarn when you spin. It tends to get like excessively, which this is just the nature of winter too, but it just zaps the life out of it. It gets extra staticky, even more so. So I just don't like the feel. But there are some people that maybe it's like, maybe your fleece is really dirty. Maybe you have a breed that has a really high lanolin percent and you need that higher temperature. That's fine. But that's just, what I do and what I like and why I like it. Kind of some of the hardcore rules though, because with scouring, everyone's greatest fear is I'm going to felt my fleece, which is extremely valid. And some general rules is, one, like I said, slippery, not sudsy, regardless of what it is that you're using. Suds promote felting. So like wet felting, like has anyone never done wet felting before? Anybody? Okay. Oh, okay. So yeah, you're using like soap. It's like an agitator, and you're using it to force that felting action. So you want to keep those suds out of the water. Another thing is, don't monkey with it. Like that's another reason why I started using those laundry bags, is because I fiddle with everything. Like I just can't resist the temptation. And so I found when I used to scour and I would just add my wool and it'd just be floating there in the water, what am I doing? I'm constantly going over there, monkeying around, poking through it, looking at it, and that will cause felting. So putting it in that laundry bag, and then it removes the temptation altogether. It's like, know thyself and know your tendencies, and that is absolutely one of my tendencies. And another biggie is always, always, always wool to water. Never water to wool. Never like be pouring your hot water over your wool. You always add your wool to the water, because the felting dangers, temperature fluctuations. So also piggybacking on that, always try to, transferring your wool to roughly the same temperature. So a good way to promote felting, if you're a wet felter, is you use hot water and cold water. You're shocking it. You're going back and forth. So don't do that. Like try to maintain roughly the same temperature of water. And so with the agitation of pouring hot water onto your wool, though, that's going to, again, promote felting. So you'll see I always add the laundry bag to the water, pour or take the laundry bag out, then pour the water out, do my fresh water, add the wool back. Like never pour water over wool. And okay, we can do it. Yep, next slide. Oh, look at that. All right. Okay, so who here is a spinner? Oh, This is awesome. Okay, so does anybody here raise sheep already? Wool sheep? And you're just like looking to get into it? Okay, is everybody else just like, hey, I think I want to do this and I'm here to see what it's all about? All right, cool. Okay, so there really are two, and is anybody here the first first Homestead Festival? Oh, wow, that's awesome. Okay, so I actually did not all this, I didn't do the whole process, but I did stuff on spinning the first year here, and I talked all about the woolen versus worsted. So kind of the quick down and dirty, and just so everyone knows, there's really like two extremes as far as types of yarn go. And I'm not referring to thickness or gauge, just so we're clear. There's a worsted yarn and there's a woolen yarn. So if you have these two extremes and there's this sea, a massive sea of gray area in between. But if we're going polar opposite ends of the spectrum here, your worsted yarn is going to be made from what's called combed top. So combed, so think brushing, combs, right? Everything is getting parallel. Woolen yarn, a true woolen, is going to be made from carded wool. So traditionally, and I am in many ways a stickler for history and tradition, but traditionally speaking, all true woolen yarn would be made on hand carders because you would be making these little Tootsie Roll eggs to spin from. Back in the 1800s, this is why people had kids, and 2-year-olds would be hand carding roll eggs, maybe 3 years old. But that was the first, one of the first jobs that they have is spinning roll eggs. So those are the two extreme ends of the spectrum, and then there's this whole gray semi area in between. I personally like a semi-woolen yarn. I like a woolen yarn, but I also like a semi-woolen yarn. But that's because primarily I consider myself a weaver, and for me, I like to use my wool for the weft, which is, if anyone's familiar with weaving, it's what is thrown back and forth. I'm the one that's throwing that shuttle and beating that in. And so for me, I used to always use the hand carders because this was cheap and this is what I had. But I felt like all I was doing was carding for hours on end. It would take me an eternity. I'd have this big, glorious basket full of these cloud-like pillows, and then I would spin it in a half hour, and I was like, cool, time to start all over again. And so then that's when the drum carder came into the picture here recently. So really, again, I'm saying this because you can use these. You can start with these. These are great. I still do use them, to be honest. It's going to take you a lot longer. But if you are wanting a true woolen yarn, this is the way to do it. This is the way to do it. So if you are wanting to get more of and again, just for a quick recap, so a worsted, like I said, that's made from combed top. So that type of yarn is going to be less airy, it's less insulating, it's smoother, it's harder wearing. So think gloves, something that's coming in contact and working a lot and rubbing a lot. That's hard wearing. You're not going to abrade it as much because all those parallel fibers are being spun, and it allows you to get tighter. You're squeezing all that air out, okay? But it's also not as insulating. Whereas a woolen, again, I'm going extreme ends of the spectrum here, whereas a woolen yarn, which is made from a carded fiber, they're not perfectly stick straight and parallel. There's air incorporated specifically, intentionally incorporated into that process. And what that's going to do is that's going to give you a more insulating yarn. It's also going to be less hard wearing. So I would never make gloves out of a woolen yarn. A nice squishy, cozy sweater. And it's also, so what did I say? It's insulating, it's more airy, and it's also more prone to pilling. So you get those sweaters and you have to use that, you get those sweaters and you have to use that shaver because you have all those little pills, like a woolen yarn. So you need to decide, what do you like? This is just a blanket statement, this is what you like, or maybe you're spinning for a particular project too, which is also very important. So you need to determine what you like. I like carding. So what you do here, and this is regardless if you're combing or you're carding, half of the battle of good spinning is good carding. The more consistent you card, the more consistent you're going to spin. So when I say that, I mean, and I'm going to show you the drum carder here. So if I say, okay, with this particular project that I have in mind, or this is what I'm wanting, the type of yarn that I'm wanting to make, 3 passes on the drum carder. So all of the wool that you're carding for that project, be consistent, do the 3 passes. And I'm going to show you how to like diz it off into roving and stuff like that too. So it's all about consistency. So the more consistent you card, the more consistent the incorporation of air is going to be in that roving that you use to spin from, which means that it's going to all draft more evenly and the same, so that you're not constantly adjusting. It's not like, oh, oops, it's jamming up because it's not drafting as well because I only went 2 passes with the drum carder versus the 3 that I did on the previous batch. So that really is the ticket. And another thing too is, in order to save your equipment, save yourself from having to do excessive passes in the drum carder, is a process that's called picking. Now they do have like full-on wool pickers. They look like these like a swing picker looks like a medieval torture device. It's got like this swing and it's got these tines and it's got these tines. And they also have box pickers too. I just do it by hand. So the whole point of this is to open up the fibers to allow the carder to accept them. So this is a Brother drum carder. This is, again, new to me, a couple months. So this is a Brother drum carder. You can't see it because it's hiding back here, but it's a manual crank. They do make motorized cranks as well. I'm a control freak, and I want to be the one that's controlling how fast or slow that it goes. So I'm all about the manual stuff. So this is really all picking is. It's opening the fibers up. You do not want to just take this big old clump of wool and just go jamming it in here. It's going to be really hard in the equipment. You're going to hear the most god-awful sound, and that's your fleece tearing. So even if you hand card, you want to pick. Again, you don't need to get crazy. You're just opening it up. The carder's job, whether it's hand carders or a drum carder, the job is not to take this super dense bit of wool and brush it. Its job is to distribute it across this drum, incorporate that air. This, just for context, when I'm referring, this drum here in the front, this is called the liquor, and this is called the swift. So the job of it is you feed it in, and less is more. Again, it's one of those things that the less you do, the more even, the lighter, the less passes. When I see people get a ton of buildup on this liquor drum, because the liquor drum's job, wow, that was hard. Liquor drum's job is to feed the wool in and wind it on this swift. So this is where you're taking your wool off. What gets on the liquor is usually, assuming you're doing it right, is maybe you missed some second cuts. Sometimes with Icelandic, if you do feed it too fast or you hold it back, which you don't want to do, you'll actually force it to wind around that liquor drum. So the less that you have on the liquor drum, you know that you're doing a good job, basically. It's an indication that you're on the right track. So what this is, so if you can see just how like nice, light and airy it is, you can also see, just to kind of go back to the skirting, the skirting. Wow, that is fancy. You can see like this tiny little bit, like this, like I am not picking that out. Like there is no way I'm going through and I'm picking those little thingies out. What is nice about this is as it goes through the carding process, you have this little tray. all that stuff actually falls out, drops into this, and then this is your tray that you can just brush it off. And you'll think like, wow, I did such a great job skirting. There's no dirt here. There's no nothing here. And then you pull that thing out like, wow, where did that come from? You know, because you didn't even see it. So less is more. Nice, light, airy. And we're just hand slowly letting it. And you see, should I turn it? Would that be, can I turn it? I just want everybody to be able to see. That is really cool that they can do that on the television. Okay, cool. Look at that. All right. And you can see how I'm just, and I'm not, this is not like a whoa, Nelly. We're not pulling on the reins back here, okay? Like I might sometimes pull it back so you're not feeding too much in at once. That's the key. So nice and slow, nice and slow. It's going, feeding around. Now, in full disclosure, I kind of prepped this. Like I already have stuff that's on the drum carder so that I can show you how to take it off. But yeah, you're just going around and you can see like this is a little bit that got on, but it might, when it comes back a second time, it might get picked up by the Swift. And it didn't, so let me pull it off. And yeah, that's just like a random little fuzzy bit. So the liquor, by the way, like this isn't waste. I use these for felted dryer balls. So it's a really good use for it because, hey, it's already clean. You know what I mean? It's just little tiny fuzzy bits, maybe some second cuts that you missed. I never throw away wool. It's like not a throwaway thing. But yeah, and so then it has this brush here. I usually like to just kind of push down to just kind of force it to like push it down in on those tines. Now, I am usually good for, like with this, for what I'm spinning, like 3 passes is usually what I do. So then I just get this brush, and I would pack this more. Again, this is just so you guys can see. So then I flip my brush up. Now, this is also, I will say the drum carder has kind of opened up my world to, oh no, I lost my hook. Uh-oh. Whoopsie. That's not good. Uh-oh. It's up here somewhere. Oh. Nope. Okay. That's all right. I don't want to hold this up. I'll just have to figure it out. Okay. So I need my hook for the... Oh, no. No, that's a piece of grass. Oh, no, those are pliers. No, it's like a little metal hook. Like a little tiny, of course, it's extremely small. No, that's all right. I'll just use my finger. All right, so I don't have my hook, so I don't know how I'm going to do this. All right, so this is called a diz, all right? So this is one that I just bought from somebody off of Etsy. But you can use a button. It's just, again, know thyself. If I use free buttons I have lying around, I will never have a button when I need it because I'll lose it. I'll stick it in my pocket. It'll get washed. I'll accidentally throw it away with a handful of, staples and wrappers and whatever. So, man, if I spent $20 on one little thing, I'm never going to lose it. So this is, it's called a diz, though. And this is something that is very new to me that I discovered, which is, like, truly the greatest thing ever. So this is a way to make roving, like, off of what you carded. Because previously, what I would do was sitting on my iPad. Oh my gosh. So, gravy. All right, so previously what I would do is I would pull this whole thing off as a bat. And so felters, you know what bats are? They're basically these big sheets of carded wool, which is great, but I was like ripping it off, like trying to rip as consistent, thicknesses as I possibly could. And then I was like, oh dang, like, It's just not, I'm not doing it the same way each time. And then I discovered the world of dizzing. And so what this is you basically put this little hook through a hole, and whatever size hole is going to be dependent on how puffy your, can you see this? How puffy your fleece is. Oh, should I turn it? Okay. Yeah. All right. This is where the magic happens. I'm doing it backwards, so if I screw it up, it's not my fault because I'm not facing the right way. So I get it through the hole, and then this is all it is you are pulling, and you're basically drafting it through this hole. And then you get this nice bit of roving. And this can be like this one massive continuous thing that you do, which is awesome. And I'm going to break this off because I want to spin. So this would come off in a big, like this whole thing, I can get to come off in one nice bit like this. And like, this is a nice even thickness because I know for this particular project, this is the one hole that I use on my Diz. Again, consistency. It's all about consistency. It's going to get a much more even spin as a result. So what I like to do, so again, all about what you like. I am a great wheel spinner. I do have what's called a low wheel, but I never use it because I am in love with the great wheel. And I like a semi-woolen yarn. So like I said, for my weaving purposes, like I said, I used to do the roll eggs and never got any spinning done because all I was doing was carting my life away. And that would be a true woolen yarn. Well, now, thanks to the carter and the great world of dizzing, now I can spin from the fold. So there's a lot of ways to spin. This is just one method. This is really great for slippery fibers. This is really great for uneven staple lengths. Like for me, like I said, I have Icelandics within their single fleece, which this is Icelandic, by the way, which within their single fleece, they have they're a dual-coated breed. So they have a really short, fuzzy, warm, staple length, like almost like a down next to skin bell. And then they have, which if you remember back that picture of my girl Rakia at the beginning, like those long flowing locks, those babies can be like 12 inches long. And it's more hard wearing. It's really like water resistant. That's what Vikings used to make rope out of. You know what I mean? So spinning from the fold, though, with those uneven staple lengths really is great. It's a great way to get it under control. And so because with the the semi-woolen and the carding, you're still incorporating that air into your fiber. Now, if you were wanting that worsted, you would not card, you would comb, and then you would also not be spinning on a great wheel because a great wheel is only for woolen spinning because you can only spin long draw. Isn't that just the way it goes? I got it. Of course, I had it all set up before my talk. Anyway, I will talk while I do this. So if you are going to want to ply your yarn, so it's all about, finding what it is that you're wanting to make. So for me, I am actively spinning for another blanket to weave. And so for me, out of my Icelandic, and so for me, I want a very specific thickness as a single. So I'm not going to save myself in plying, which there are, of course, plying is a way to add thickness. If you spin really, thinner and you want a thicker yarn, you can ply multiple strands together. It does make it stronger, of course. You do get better stitch, if you're a knitter, you get better stitch definition that way too. But for me, because this is just the way that I like to do it and I want to do it for my blanket, I am trying to get a very particular thickness off of a single and low twist. Because, again, with Icelandic, it will go from nice to wiry rope in like a minute. So it's finding, your own style and, what it is that you like to spin. So you can see this is called long draw. So this is where I'm actually letting the twist into what's called, I mean, you can see that's called the drafting triangle. So I'm actually letting the twist into that drafting triangle. And I'm not feeding it like you would with a worsted yarn. So the thing too with woolen versus worsted is this is called a nep. So that would be from little bits that were probably second cuts that I missed in the process. But you can just look at that, you just pick it off. But a woolen yarn is also going to be, because it's very like devil may care, it's like trust. You just gotta let that twist in. It does inherently make a less consistent yarn. So if you are like, I want the most perfect stitch definition known to man, and it's definitely, you're gonna probably want worsted. Whereas for me with a blanket, because I'm actually working on a sample right now at home from my hand spun, as weaving, it's like any of these little consistencies, but you can see how fuzzy this is, right? Like that's the air, that's the insulating property. But it's going to pack in. Any of these little inconsistencies you're really not gonna see in the final product. But again, it's depending on your project. It's very project dependent. So this is just one method of spinning. This is just, there's, like I said, there is two extremes and then the sea of semis in between. There's great wheels, there's low wheels. You can spin long draw on a low wheel. You don't need a great wheel to do it. But it's all about finding what you like. I started on a low wheel, and then I got my first great wheel, and then I got another, and then I got another, and it's becoming a problem. But as it usually goes with fiber crafts. But yeah, there's just many ways to do it, and it's really all comes down to your fleece type. Some just aren't conducive to long draw, and some of the just things that you want to make. It might need a certain property that you get through how you prep the fiber and then how you spin it. So it can be very project specific, as far as like what you want that final outcome to be. So, I missed to say next. I am really bad at this. I'm so sorry. If you can hit it, there was a video of me spinning back home, so my bad. Those are roll eggs, by the way. That's what was left of a basket of roll eggs. And that's one of my wheels that I have back home. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I am out of time and maybe bleeding into, not too bad. So, all right, that's it. I don't think I have any time for questions, do I? Do I have any time for questions? No, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you so much.